Hi, good day. I am teacher Joel Wanya, a grade 9 science teacher of Don Eloy de Guzman Memorial National High School. During our previous lesson, you've learned the difference between ionic compounds and covalent compounds.
Based on your knowledge on that topic, which one among of these 5 substances does not belong to the group? We have hydrochloric acid, water, methane, sodium chloride, and hydrogen peroxide. If your answer is, you're correct. All of these substances except sodium chloride are examples of covalent compound. Sodium chloride is an example of ionic compound.
And during our discussion with ionic compound, we've made mention about ions. We will get to know more about ions as we move on to our lesson. Now, let's get started. Our topic for today is based on the 8th most essential learning competency, which is explain how ions are formed. We will be achieving this objective by discussing the following sections. Define an ion. Explain how ions are formed. Identify cations and anions. Name chemical formula with ions. And describe the important functions of ions in the body. Let's start by defining an ion. An ion is any atom or molecule with a net charge, either positive or negative. During our previous discussion, we've made mention that most of the time, atoms are in their neutral or ground state, which means that the number of protons inside the nucleus are equal to the number of electrons outside. Take a look at this atom. If this has 4 positively charged protons and 4 negatively charged electrons, the sum of which is 0, so it is neutral or zero charge. But once the atom has a net charge, either positive or negative, the atom becomes an ion. This leads to this question. When does an atom becomes positively charged or negatively charged? We will answer this question as we discuss how ions are formed.
Ions are formed when a neutral atom loses or gains 1 or more electrons. An atom that loses an electron becomes positively charged, while an atom that gains an electron becomes negatively charged.
The process of gaining or losing electrons happens when a certain atom transfers electrons to another atom during ionic bonding. Remember that in taking out electrons from an atom, it needs energy, and that energy is called ionization energy, or the energy needed to remove the outermost electron from a neutral atom. Bear in mind also that the gaining or losing electrons should satisfy the octet rule, or the tendency of atoms to prefer to have 8 valence electrons in the outermost energy level. Valence electrons are electrons found at the outermost energy level. This leads us to our next question, which is, what are the types of ions? Actually, there are only 2 types of ion. First is the cation, and the second one is the anion. Cation, usually metal element, is a positive ion. It is produced when 1 or more electrons are lost from a neutral atom. In contrary, an ion, commonly non-metal element, is a negatively charged ion. It is formed when one or more electrons are gained from a neutral atom. We will get to know more about cation and anion as we move on to our lesson. To identify whether an element is a metal or non-metal, please refer to this illustration. Look for the staircase of the periodic table of elements. Elements along this area are metalloids. Elements to the right of this staircase are non-metals, while to the left are metals except hydrogen. Before we move on, let's do this activity, which is entitled, Where Do I Belong? Within 20 seconds, you identify whether it is a cation or an anion by putting a check mark on the corresponding table. Here is it. Timer starts now. Time is up. If your answers are like these, you're correct. Excellent. Moving on, let's first have an example to further elaborate the difference between the types of ion. Let's first have cation. Metals tend to lose electrons because they have low electron negativity. Take note that electron negativity is the ability of an atom to attract electron. Since they give off electron, it forms positively charged ion called cation. Let's take for instance a metal element sodium with atomic number 11. Remember that atomic number pertains to the number of protons. In a neutral atom, the number of protons are equal to the number of electrons. For sodium, since its atomic number is 11, thus protons and electrons are also 11. Get the sum algebraically. Positive 11 plus negative 11 equals 0 net charge. Sodium is still in its neutral state, but ready to lose electron. But how many electrons? Remember that it has only one valence electron. To be stable is to contain the outermost energy level with 8 valence electrons. It is easier for a metal element like sodium to lose 1 electron rather than to gain 7 since it has low electron negativity. Now, as sodium loses 1 electron, it becomes stable since the electrons in the second energy level is already 8. Furthermore, the number of its protons remain the same. Protons remain 11 while electrons become 10. Positive 11 plus negative 10 equals positive 1 net charge. Sodium produces positive charge, therefore it is a cation, and the chemical formula will be Na1 positive, or just simply write Na positive. Positive 1 becomes the oxidation number of sodium. Take note that oxidation number is the total number of electrons that an atom either gains or loses in order to form a chemical bond with another atom. To know the oxidation number of a certain element faster, just refer to the group number where the elements are located in the periodic table of elements. Metal elements, except hydrogen, located at group 1, 2, and 3 has an oxidation number of positive 1, positive 2, and positive 3 respectively. Non-metals in group 5, 6, 7, and 8 has an oxidation number of negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, and 0 respectively. Elements belong to group 4 has either positive or negative 4 oxidation number. Group number also tells the valence electron of a certain element. In general, the number of valence electrons of a representative element is equal to the group number. Now, let's proceed to an ion. Non-metals tend to gain electrons because they have high electron negativity in comparison with metals. Non-metals form negatively charged ion called an ion. Let's take for instance a non-metal element chlorine with an atomic number 17. This means that both protons and electrons are 17, so it is in neutral state or zero net charge. Chlorine has a valence electron 7 and it is unstable. To make it stable, chlorine with high electron negativity has to attract one more electron to make the outermost energy level with 8 valence electrons. Now, protons remain 17, but the electrons become 18. Positive 17 plus negative 18 equals negative 1 net charge. Chlorine produces negative charge, therefore chlorine is an ion. The chemical formula will be Cl negative, and its oxidation number is negative 1. Let's pause for a moment, for we are going to answer the second activity entitled Fill Me Up. In 20 seconds, complete the table by filling in the needed data. Timer starts now. Time is up. If your answers are like this, you're correct. Very good. We are now down to our last activity, which is bond time. To be able to accomplish this, let's learn first two concepts. Writing Lewis symbol of an ionic compound and naming ionic compound. Let's say, for example, take a look that the product has one beryllium atom and two fluorine atoms. For this situation, you just draw the Lewis symbol of beryllium between the Lewis symbol of the two atoms of fluorine. Beryllium atom will donate 2 electrons, one for each fluorine atom to make them stable. Beryllium is the one that donates electron since it's a metal element and has least valence electron compared to fluorine. Beryllium shall have positive 2 charge while fluorine is negative 1. One beryllium atom that bonds with 2 fluorine atoms shall be called beryllium fluoride. Cation's name remains the same, while anion's name changes by taking the root name of the atom and changing the ending with IDE, like bromide, oxide, sulfide, iodide, and chloride. Now, are you ready to perform the last activity entitled bond time? Okay, Here is the direction. For each pair of elements, draw electron dot structures showing the valence electrons in each atom, just like what we did a while back. Write the name of each type of ionic compound. Finally, fill in the table below each reaction. Refer to the sample shown. This is the Lewis symbol of lithium fluoride and its details. Now, do your part. Time is up. If your answers are like this, you're correct. Excellent. Our knowledge of ions is important not only to your success in a chemistry subject, but also to the understanding of many critical life processes, like the concept of health. Dietary minerals like calcium ion, iron ion, potassium ion, etc. are mainly inorganic ions. These are essential nutrients that must be obtained from our diet to become healthy. Truly, health is wealth, especially during this time of pandemic. To close our discussion, answer the following questions in this post-test. Let's get started. Number 1. What do you call the electrons that participate in bonding? A. Core electrons. B. Valence electrons. C. Lewis dot structure. Or D. Attachment. If your answer is B, you're correct. Number 2. Why do atoms react with one another to form chemical bonds? A. To attain stability. B. To form compounds. C. To form molecules. Or D. To produce ions. If your answer is letter A, you're correct. Number 3. What do you call the negatively charged ion? It has gained one or more electrons. A. Ion. B. Positron. C. Anion. D. Cation. If your answer is C, you're correct. Number 4. Metals tend to blank electrons to become blank ions. A. Lose positive. B. Gain negative. C. Lose neutral. Or D. Gain neutral. If your answer is letter A, you're correct. Number 5. When a chlorine atom gains an electron, it gets a charge of blank. A. Negative 1. B. Positive 1. C. 0. Or D. Positive or negative 1. If your answer is A, you're correct. Number 6. It is the total number of electrons that an atom either gains or loses in order to form a chemical bond with another atom. A. Ionization energy. B. Electron affinity. C. Electron negativity. Or D. Oxidation number. If your answer is D, you're correct. Number 7. The tendency of atoms to prefer to have 8 valence electrons in the outermost energy level is called blank. A. Hund's rule. B. Pauli's exclusion principle. C. Octet rule. Or D. Off-bow principle. If your answer is C, you're correct. Number 8. It is any atom or molecule with a net charge, either positive or negative. A. Positron. B. Ion. C. Cation. Or D. Anion. If your answer is B, you're correct. Number 9. These are elements that lose electrons during ionic bonding. A. Plastics. B. Metalloids. C. Non-metals. Or D. Metals. If your answer is D, you're correct. Number 10. What is the oxidation number if an atom loses 2 electrons? A. Negative 2. B. Positive 2. C. 0. Or D. Positive or negative 2. If your answer is B, you're correct.
Our lesson has ended. Let's meet again for our next lesson. This has been your teacher saying, when you learn science, you learn life. Bye-bye!